stream. We're just going to chat for a minute while all of the technology gods align so that the beginning of our video doesn't get cut off because we hate it when that happens.
We do.
Don't we?
And it happens. Yeah.
It does. It does happen for some reason. Sometimes these live streams, the very beginning, you lose it. So
Yeah.
I think we're good now, though.
I do.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. I'm Christy Brower here with my co-host, Katie Weaver. Hey, Katie.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, I'm pretty good, but how are you, Miss New Car?
Yeah, I bought a new car last night. It's great. You know me, I'm a Cancer. I don't like to spend money. And I have needed to buy a new car for quite a while. I've been putting it off. I've been ridiculous. This buying cars is, oh my God. But we actually found a car that we absolutely loved and bought it from an individual, which was nice because it was just so much easier to deal with him. He didn't live far from us. He turned out to be someone that, knows people we know. And it just worked out like exactly the way it should. So anyway, yeah, it's all good. We went and got it registered this morning and onto insurance. And I was going to take it and have it detailed. And, my teenager was like, oh, I like money. So she spent most of the day, and it wasn't super dirty, but she spent most of the day doing it I was like, I'll pay you to detail it, but it has to be a professional job, Like if this is the 5-second job, don't even think about it. But anyway, she did a great job. And so we're rolling. So yeah, it's great. It's beautiful. It's a luxury car and it's everything I needed. So
well, yeah. Good. I'm glad to hear that. That's wonderful. I know you are not a big fan of the car shopping.
No, I will say though that we actually got a phenomenal deal. My bank couldn't believe it. Actually, we bought it $5,000 under book.
Wow.
Just because this guy had not had much luck selling it because he's not good at writing ads.
Well,
yeah.
Somebody's loss is somebody else's gain. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all that's new in my world. Just,
good. That's very cool.
Yeah. And how are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Just doing well, just hibernating away from the sun. Just not a summer person, never have been. So I'm kind of looking forward to September. I'm ready for things to cool a bit. And right now I don't want to even set foot outside because I hate the heat. So, I'm getting kind of bored. I'm going to be really glad when we can go back to camping and doing outdoor stuff when it cools off.
Me too. It's been pretty brutal. My dogs are so lazy. They lay in the house and just, they're just passed out. But the pigs, I have, some of you guys know this, but I have 2 mini pigs that live in the house. And normally in the summer, in the morning, they get up, they eat breakfast, they go outside and play most of the day. They have a piggy door so they can come and go. But it's been so hot, they don't want to go outside. And so instead, they're in the house, getting into stuff, nagging the crap out of me. If you hear oinking and banging around during the show, it's because they're outside my office door, mad because I wouldn't let them come in. And they've been fighting and banging on the door and winking and, honking and squealing and carrying on. So if you hear some of that going on, you'll know why. So, yeah. Hopefully, one of my family members will notice that the pigs are harassing me, but
I hope so.
I have spent most of the day in my resin studio, because I'm a resin artist. It's part of what I do. And they can't come in there either because they get into everything. And they have sat outside that door and fought until I finally made them go outside for a while.
I've got dogs and cats and they give me a run for my money regularly. I think I'm going to say a hard pass on the pigs here in these stories.
Yeah, I wouldn't rush into anything on that. Yep.
No, not at all.
They're fun and they're cute and we do love them.
Oh, yeah.
Today they have really, really been on my last nerve.
Yeah, no kidding. Sounds like it.
Poor kids.
Well, we wanted to come with a live stream tonight for you guys because there's been a lot of discussion lately about poison.
Mm-hmm.
In the Daybell Vallow case that we're following very closely, of course, there are several unsolved murders of adults who all seem to have died of the same thing. Pulmonary embolism. They seem to all be having a pulmonary embolism, except that they don't really have a lot of physical reason to have had one.
Yeah.
But, when several people in your family die of a pulmonary embolism within 2 or 3 months of each other, it does kind of make you go, what's up with this?
Yeah.
So we wanted to share, first of all, we want to give a shout out to 2 of our listeners who in the comments suggested 2 potential poisons that could cause pulmonary embolism. We're going to talk about
Mhm,
those two. So that's malachite and
mhm,
that's blue ring octopus venom.
mhm.
And then we just did some research. So Katie and I both have some things to cover of some different poisons and could they be a possible in that case? And also just in general, sort of interesting. Hey, if the FBI is listening, please know that my search history about poisons and what causes pulmonary embolism, what toxins cause pulmonary embolism, that was research for this show. I'm not planning anything. So as I was
Yeah,
researching, I was like, wow. I hope
yeah,
nobody's tracking me.
yeah. My husband and I had the same conversation last night. I was like, if anyone ever looks at my search history, not just today, but in general, they're really going to
Right.
wonder who the hell this person is. Yep.
I have a true crime podcast. I swear that's what I'm doing. So let's
Yeah.
start with the blue ring octopus. Okay, so
Okay.
one of the reasons the blue ring octopus came up is because they do live around Hawaii.
Mhm.
So there was a thought that
One kind
maybe,
of them. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
blue ring
there's several
octopus
different
actually all
kinds.
over the world, but yeah.
Right, yeah, but they are available around Hawaii and they are a kind of octopus that people eat too. So
Huh.
I did a little research about them just to learn about, could they in fact cause a pulmonary embolism? Let me be very clear. I'm not a professional. I simply did a lot of Googling. Uh, but this is what I found. So the venom would either have to be extracted or ingested in this situation. Normally, what happens is people get bit by them.
Mhm.
They're small. They're only like this length of a pencil. They're not a very big octopus. And when they bite you,
Oh.
you don't even feel it. But here's the problem. In their salivary glands, there are microorganisms that produce tetrodotoxin, which is the same toxin that's in pufferfish.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So it causes paralysis. So it doesn't
Mhm.
actually cause pulmonary embolism.
Mhm.
It causes respiratory failure because what happens is that you pretty quickly become completely paralyzed. And so your breathing will just shut down.
Yeah.
It is in fact survivable. If this happens to you, you're out, in the ocean and get bit by one.
Yeah.
If they can get you quickly enough and get you on a ventilator, the paralysis lasts about 15 hours. And if you can, have assistance with breathing during that time, you will survive it.
Yeah.
But if you were asleep in your bed in Salem, Idaho, and someone injected you with this stuff, you would definitely die.
Yeah.
Because your whole system shuts down. But here's the thing. It doesn't cause a pulmonary embolism. So that doesn't quite fit with the autopsy results that we've seen.
No.
Or sort of some of them are rumored and some of them we've seen with Tam Daybell and Joe Ryan. It doesn't quite fit. But I
Yeah.
did find it interesting that it is certainly something that might come up again in another true crime kind of a way. So I'm glad I know.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Katie, do you
Definitely.
want to share one of yours?
Yeah. So let's talk about malachite. This has been a big theory from people for a few reasons. I mean, the main reason was that Ian Pulowski, in his conversations with the FBI, said that Lori and Chad and their group had been using some kind of an ointment or cream and some kind of an oil or salve that had been made by malachite. That they were, he said blessing and then using in part of their work, their stuff. So
Well,
there's some
that's
really
really
big
great.
problems with that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
anybody that knows anything about, well, I mean, this is a form of crystal therapy. So I guess we'll kind of back up there. I want to explain that a little bit because some of you guys are
Mhm.
like, what the hell? Crystal healing, crystal therapy is in like the new age metaphysical world pretty well known,
Mhm.
and people do make creams and salves out of the essence of crystals all the time. They make crystal elixirs.
Sure.
So maybe somebody would take, so like say you want to boost your intuition. Maybe you would put an amethyst in a glass of water and you would bless it. Now, was Chad giving it like a priesthood blessing or were they doing more like energy work? I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm guessing it was more of an energy worky thing, but I could still see him doing like
Could be
using
combo. It
priesthood
seems to me
stuff.
that there was a lot of
Yeah.
mixing
So I'm not
things.
sure on that, but that's actually a pretty, in the new age world, that wouldn't surprise anyone to hear that,
Mm-mm.
except for that. So if you were making I'm all over the place. Sorry. Let's say you were making a crystal elixir. You take a glass of water or juice or wine or whatever. You'd put an amethyst in it, if that was the stone you were using, and you would put your hands around it. Maybe you'd hold it up to your heart and you would bless it with your intentions. So that doesn't surprise me. That seems kind of normal. You can make your own essential oil roll-ons and put crystals right in them. You can buy them that way. You can make them that way. That's
Right.
not surprising. None of that is surprising to people that play in the metaphysical world.
Right.
But malachite is really surprising
Oh,
because
yeah.
malachite is very toxic. Now, get toxic. There's a difference between toxic and poisonous. So malachite is toxic, not necessarily poisonous. However,
Okay.
malachite's really tough on your system. The reason why is because malachite is more than 50% copper.
Yeah.
And copper in itself can be toxic, right? So
Sure.
it's the dust of malachite that is a problem. So, for example, people that work in lapidary uh, jobs or hobbies, you have to wear a respirator when you cut. Actually, you should with any stone, but most particularly these ones that are high in heavy metals.
Don't they
Uh,
cut them with water too to try
yeah,
to keep the dust
they
down?
they put them underwater and cut them that way. Yeah, because of the dust factor. Now, I did read an account from a lady who didn't know that about malachite, and she did cut some malachite and some chrysocolla,
Mm,
because that chrysocolla falls in the same classification,
yeah.
and a couple other stones, without, cutting them underwater or using a respirator,
Mm.
and she had a very serious lung injury from that. She said, the dust of it coated the insides of her lungs so that she couldn't really absorb oxygen.
Oh,
And then tiny shards from that drove its way into the fibers of her lungs. And
gosh.
anyway, it caused a really serious injury. However, it did not kill her. But that's why that's
Mm.
why people are considering it toxic, and that's why people are suspicious. And you might have heard this before. People kind of wondering, could it have been malachite poisoning?
Well, the
So
other reason why they're wondering it is because Chad and Lori's wedding rings are malachite rings.
yes. So one of the things that was discovered in some evidence, I believe that Kay helped turn this over, but sometime in October or September-ish October, they found Lori's Amazon account because it was still Charles's Amazon account, and
Yeah.
discovered that she had bought. She was shopping for a wedding dress and for men's like vacation clothes, and had purchased two malachite wedding rings. And they're these actually, I think, kind of ugly rings, but
Yeah.
they're
I
these
didn't.
bands that have like triangles of malachite inset in them. So why malachite? Well, in like the metaphysical world, malachite is full of healing properties. Now, this might not be exactly what they were using it because they seem to kind of go off the rails with their they're not as mainstream. And I know crystal therapy is not mainstream anyway, but bear with me.
Mhm.
Malachite is good for calming, loyalty, leadership, protection, wisdom, comfort, balance, peace, self understanding, positive transformation, healing, and unconditional love and heart connections. So
Hmm.
that may or may not have been why they were using
So
malachite.
why would two diabolical murderers want that? Like,
I'm, I'm
yeah.
guessing it's something different. My thought on it is that there's some kind of a God said so about malachite.
Could be. Could be.
So, but the question remains: Did could they have used malachite to commit murder? Well, what we know is that what copper toxicity does is it builds up in your liver. And so if you are poisoned or have that toxicity from heavy metals, you'll see that's where they'll build up in. Alex Cox, in his autopsy, his liver was clear. And so for that reason, I am going to say that I don't believe it was malachite. I
Yeah.
also
Well,
don't
'cause
believe it was malachite because it's just not toxic enough.
yeah, yeah, and it doesn't cause an actual pulmonary embolism.
Right. Now I know some people will disagree with me because people really wanted it to be malachite because it just seems so damn perfect, you know? But
Right.
that's my personal opinion after doing a lot of research on it. I couldn't find a single instance of anyone ever actually dying from malachite poisoning.
Yeah.
Again, injuries to your lungs, absolutely. But actual death, I didn't find it. So, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it's out there somewhere, but I didn't find it. So, but because of the copper and the heavy metal aspect of building up in the kidneys and liver, and Alex Cox did not have anything. His liver was clean. So for me, it's just a no.
Yeah. It sounds like it. Okay. Well, thank you. That's awesome information.
You bet.
The next thing that I found that can potentially cause a pulmonary embolism is prostaglandin or dinoprost, which is a hormone that induces labor. The thing is, it just can sometimes cause pulmonary embolism. It's not a given you inject somebody with this, they have a pulmonary embolism. So I ruled that out
Mhm,
really quickly that it definitely couldn't be what was used in this situation if something was used,
mhm,
because it's not reliable enough because I mean it is actually safely used to induce labor all the time, but
mhm.
in some people it can cause pulmonary embolism.
Yeah.
So didn't get much there. What else have you got?
Well, I have a list of 5 of the most well-known poisons used in history.
Ah,
And all of them are pretty interesting. They don't all necessarily cause what's happened to our Vicks, at least
mhm,
in the Daybell case. But again, like we cover lots of cases. So,
yeah,
this isn't necessarily just that case that's rolling around my mind. But anyway, I thought that this was a pretty interesting list. So, arsenic, we've all
mhm,
heard of arsenic, right? We've all made a joke about slipping arsenic in somebody's something,
yeah.
or maybe you have. I don't know. Not me, of
Yeah,
course,
I
but
I don't know what you're talking about.
I've heard some of you guys
No,
say it.
FBI, this is all research for my show, remember?
Right. All right. So arsenic's been used for a really long time. In Roman times, arsenic was used to poison rivals and even emperors. It became known as the inheritance powder because there was in the
The inheritance
1600s.
powder.
Mhm,
Wow.
in the 1600s, there was a woman known as Tofana of Sicily in Rome who was selling it to people to dispose of husbands, of elderly family members, or maybe not even so elderly if you were set to inherit from them. It became quite an issue that people were knocking off right and left, and it was because of arsenic. In the 1800s, arsenic became very available as weed killers, it was used on flypapers, rat poisons. It's been used in a lot of commercial compounds, but it's also been known in a lot of domestic murders and a lot of really famous murders. So
Yeah,
arsenic is a big one. Um, Arsenic is also tasteless and colorless. And so it's
right.
easy to slip into somebody's food or drink and they would not know it was there. So, and then there's atropine.
Mm,
Atropine is also known as belladonna. You guys have probably heard of this. It is extracted from the deadly nightshade bush from the berries. Uh, the juice of 4 berries is enough to kill a human.
wow.
So it was used to cause hallucinations. This was a drug, actually, that was used in ancient Greece.
Hmm,
So, you know, if you wanted to do, somebody like more currently might do shrooms, they were doing belladonna.
wow. Boy, you have
But
to be super careful with your dosing.
if you took too much, you would go ahead and die.
Yeah.
So it was a favorite poison in medieval Europe because it was such a small amount of it is fatal. The symptoms of it, however, create a real red flush in people and kind of one of the fevers or the flus back in those days. And so sometimes it seems like maybe they sometimes didn't know the difference when somebody got poisoned between whether they were poisoned or they were just sick.
Mhm.
Strychnine. We're all
Mhm.
familiar with that one too, right? Or you've heard it before. It
Mhm.
comes from the seeds of the Nux vomica tree. That just doesn't sound like something you want in the first place. Nukes
No, it doesn't.
vomit. That's a little too close to vomit for me.
Yeah, it as don't they use it as a homeopathic for nausea?
Mhm.
I've
Yep.
had it before, I think.
Uh-huh. It grows in Southeast Asia, but it became really available in the West as medicine. Yeah, as trade with the Far East expanded, but because it was used as a tonic by doctors in small doses to aid with nausea, convalescence, and depression. But they were also using it in larger doses to poison rats. Seems like about everything here, it was used first to kill rats, and then people thought, well, hell,
Let's make some medicine out of it.
or let's,
Yeah.
let's kill grandpa with it so we can get our inheritance. Yeah.
Gosh.
All right. So it was easy to get, and it was used in a lot of murders, especially back, long before there were ever any kind of toxicology reports, right? People
Mm,
just killed over. All righty. How about cyanide? We've all heard of cyanide.
of course.
So cyanide is distilled from the kernels of certain nuts, almonds. Interesting. So this is like very like a potent blend of almond skin, apparently, as well
Mhm.
as some of the leaves of some laurel bushes. So sodium cyanide is really well used in mining and has been used in attempted mass murders. Do you
Mm,
guys, if you remember back in the 80s, there was a time when Tylenol was laced with cyanide. Do you guys remember this? It happened in the Chicago area, and several people
yeah.
did die from uh, anyway from Tylenol. Wow, I'm going to lose it all. From Tylenol that was in some way contaminated with
Yeah.
cyanide purposely. That was purposely.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a show all in itself. But
Oh, yeah, it is. That's a really interesting story, actually.
I actually, when I read that, I remember as a kid, my mom throwing away all the Tylenol and the aspirin just to be sure.
Yeah.
Everybody was really freaked out about taking any over the counter pain med at that point because
Yeah.
it panic spread throughout the land. But
Yeah,
anyway,
and it ended up only just being in the one place, but
mhm,
yeah, the whole country kind of freaked out.
yeah. Now, cyanide, the more toxic form of cyanide, dose of, not form, but dose of cyanide has been featured in a lot of different domestic murders and famous murders. It causes death in a matter of minutes. And have you ever seen like in the James Bond movies or thinking about like World War II, the spies, that they had a capsule on them, a suicide pill, like the secret
Mhm.
agents and the spies? It was cyanide.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it is the fastest acting of all poisons.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And then thallium.
Oh, yes.
So thallium is actually fairly new in comparison to some of these that were used like, thousands of years ago. Thallium was discovered in the 1960s and it has been used in some murders that we know of, but it was also, guess what? A rat poison
Every time.
every time. It has also been used as an agent of assassination in some countries. It is water soluble and tasteless, and it takes several days for the symptoms to show up. And even then, they're
Oh.
generally attributed to other illnesses. So, could thallium be our smoking gun? I have no idea. But thallium was
Maybe.
used by Saddam Hussein's secret police and by the Russian KGB
Wow.
because they would poison people. They probably still do poison people, and
Mhm.
you don't die for several days, and so you don't know you've been poisoned.
Right.
And where
Harder
you
to
pick
point the finger.
right, and wherever you were, put up to that, wherever you were exposed to that, you might not know. Yeah.
Right.
One other thing that I thought was very interesting, I was reading about, well, poison, and one of
Mhm.
the things that I read that I thought was really, really interesting, uh, uh, it was from a pre med student that said that in a class, or not a pre med student, an EMT student, I don't know. Anyway, they were talking in a class about what poisons or what would be the most undetectable way to kill someone, and their answer actually was insulin.
Oh, insulin. Oh, yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting, really interesting, actually. So
Yeah, a big dose of insulin and it burns out of the body fairly quickly. It already exists in the body, so if somebody isn't a diabetic, they're probably not looking at that anyway.
yeah, so Victoria in our chat wondered about ethylene glycol. or ethanol glycol, sorry. And ethanol glycol, there's been a fairly recent case of someone trying to kill their professor.
Oh, really?
Mhm. With ethanol glycol by repeatedly giving him coffee that they had said they had sweetened with an artificial sweetener.
Ooh, and it was ethanol glycol. Oh,
Because
that's
it's sweet.
yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't he didn't die actually, but anyway, that's been something that's been in the news not too long ago. So pretty interesting. But so those
Wow.
are a few thoughts on poisons.
Okay.
The other is an air bubble in the bloodstream.
Right. An air embolism.
Mhm.
I have certainly wondered about that. The thing is, somebody's got to kind of be, you don't just, y- what am I trying to say? Like, you got to hold somebody down to inject them if you're going to,
Right.
like, I think about like Tammy, she was asleep.
Yeah.
So whatever happened with her, you know,
Mhm.
but like Alex wasn't. So
Right.
I don't know.
Interesting though, Alex was poorly for a few days, or at least
Yeah.
according to Melanie Pulowski, he was. He'd
Hmm.
been not feeling well for a few days, and then of course he died, which kind of led me back to Valium. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Thallium
I
might
do
be.
not know.
Well, I have one more, and I found this one very interesting. So this is cyanotoxin. So when you say that when there's a toxic algae bloom, the blue-green toxic algae blooms, they're caused by cyanobacteria or cyanotoxin bacteria. So if you were to drink that water, or even you could potentially come into contact with it with your skin, it can
Yeah.
poison you. It can kill you. Shellfish poisoning frequently is from cyanotoxin bacteria because it builds up in fish and shellfish.
Oh, okay.
But here's the interesting thing. I did a little research and discovered that cyanotoxin bacteria don't just happen on the ocean, they also happen on fresh water. And Idaho has yearly blooms of cyanotoxin bacteria,
Interesting.
and it can, in fact, cause pulmonary embolism.
Wow.
The one research study I read about it, they were actually injecting mice with it, and so you can inject it. The thing about it though is that it does really severe damage to the liver. So I
Mm,
think for Alex, we know that's out for Alex because he
mhm.
didn't have any liver damage.
Yeah.
We don't know about Tammy because we haven't seen her autopsy yet. But
Right.
I've just found that interesting because that is something that if you knew a little bit about it,
Yeah.
would be pretty easy to pick up around here. Because that was my other question, like, where do you get these things?
Yeah.
And some of them, if they're rat poison,
Right. I mean, some of these things I don't think would be too hard to pick up at a farm supply store,
Mhm.
you know, or something along those
Living
lines.
where we do, I think a lot of those things are fairly common being
Oh, yeah.
used on farms,
Uh-huh.
and it wouldn't be seen as weird to be purchasing some of them.
Yeah, that was my thought as well, and that it might be a little hard to track you back. Now, Victoria has a good point. This is something I've thought a lot about too. Victoria, she said, with Chad and Lori, haven't they gone through all of their computers? I'm sure it's on Google. I've
Yeah.
really thought about that too because they've made a lot of stupid mistakes.
Mhm.
And so, their search histories and the way search histories are gathered these days as well. I really wondered. I've been saying all along that
I
I
do too.
really think that it'll be in the tech. That's what really gets them. And
Yep.
so far, we're seeing that to be true, but I'm with you. I think that there was some Googling going on that gave them some suspicions. I also really wondered if there had been some Googling of Yellowstone and the hot pots and which pools up there would dissolve a body
Mhm.
because they were so sure there for a while that Tylee was in Yellowstone. They were
I know, I
so
wondered that
sure.
too, if they literally, had been looking at that
Mhm,
kinda stuff. But one of the things
mhm.
I read about the weekend that they were there in Yellowstone is that it was packed, that there
Ah,
were tons of people, and that's one reason why they got so much cell phone footage and pictures and stuff from people when the FBI requested it, is because it was a really busy weekend in Yellowstone. So maybe they went up there with that plan and then couldn't get
mhm.
away from people to make it happen.
Uh-huh.
I
Yep.
don't know.
Yeah.
They did seem to be intent on trying to make her disappear.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely, and there is, I mean, there was, an instance a few years ago of a guy who committed suicide that way, who stepped off into a pool.
Wow.
They tried to get his body out, it was, like, dusk, and it was just too dangerous, and they called the search, said they'd come back and try the next morning. By morning, the only thing that was left was his wallet.
Yeah.
He was
Everything else
completely
was.
dissolved. So it is possible up there, and I do wonder if that was really why they were so, I mean, they knew that's the weekend she disappeared,
Hmm.
but they were so sure,
Yeah.
you know? For a little while, I felt like, well, I don't know that for sure, but they seemed to be quite sure that, Kylie was in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
So,
They sure did.
anyway, it does anyway, Victoria, that was kind of a long leading answer, but that's what I think is that, yeah, it's very possible that their search stuff is coming back to bite them, and that it was.
I think so. And we'll see so much more of it when we finally get into actual trial.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
I did see that they did set Lori's arraignment date. So Chad's arraignment date in district court is August 21st and Lori's is August 27th.
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting because they're going to have another opportunity to plead guilty or not guilty.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I think they will very likely plead not guilty, both of them, but
Oh, yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Unless somebody, it's another opportunity for a plea to happen, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they will because, yes, again, yeah, this will be a bargaining chip later down the road as
Mhm.
more charges come to the surface because they're going to, and
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting conversation about poisons and thinking about how it all could work.
Yeah.
Years ago,
Yeah.
someone came into, we owned a metaphysical store for years, and kind of just a random seller came in one time with a ton of rocks and jewelry. He actually had really cool stuff. But one of the things he had was a huge selection of poison rings.
Yes.
We all had to have one.
Yeah.
But, there are these cool rings that you basically could just pop open and have some poison in there that you just, when you were fixing someone's tea, you would just pop your
Just,
ring open and the
yeah.
poison would fall in, and that was it. That's and poison rings were a thing. They were they were a fashion piece at one point.
Kind of make you suspicious, wouldn't it? That suddenly someone in your family starts wearing this brand new fancy poison ring. You'd be
Yeah,
like, I'll make my own tea. Thank you very much.
right? No kidding. Stephanie in the live stream has a question. Stephanie, fire. We're listening.
Yeah. And Missy says blue octopus venom. You might be joining us late. We
Yes.
did cover blue octopus venom.
Mhm.
And it doesn't cause pulmonary, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Embolism. It
Embolism.
causes paralysis.
It does. It causes paralysis. So it doesn't. In the research that I've done, it causes respiratory failure from paralysis. So it's a little bit different because it just shuts down your body. So you are unable to move. And so you can't breathe. Your lungs start, your heart stops pumping, your lungs stop breathing. But it's not a blood clot, which is what a lot of these guys have.
Could that eventually cause one, do you think?
Maybe eventually, but I mean, if you don't get help like right away, you're dead. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even think there's time for a blood clot to happen. If
Mhm.
you aren't in a position where you're right away getting like rescue breathing until they can get you on a ventilator, you're toast.
However, Missy, I thought it was a really compelling thought because Lori was in Hawaii repeatedly. And
Right. Yeah.
if
Parts of it totally do make sense.
right,
And there have been poisonings of people who ate it also. Well,
right,
it's like pufferfish that it has to be prepared exactly right.
yeah,
You have to get the salivary glands out because that's where the toxin is. And if you don't, it can kill you that way.
yeah, yeah. Well, and if you subscribe to the theory, which we do, that Joseph was actually her first victim, or he and or her, maybe Lori and Alex's first victim,
Mhm.
then she had just been coming back and forth from Hawaii. And so, yeah,
Oh, yeah, Missy, it does lead to death, definitely. If you
yeah,
don't get rescue
definitely.
breathing, it does.
Oh, I think it's an interesting thought, definitely.
Mhm. It's very interesting in the way it causes paralysis, and what's horrible is that you're fully conscious the whole time
Oh, Lord.
until your heart and your lungs just shut down, and then you die.
Oh, that's so terrible.
Yeah, it's
Wanted to
bad.
answer Stephanie's question. She
Yes.
said, "How is it that Tammy did not see anything when they buried the children because she was still alive at the time?" I have an
Mm,
answer for you. When they buried Tylee, she was at work. She was a
yep,
school librarian at a local
yep,
grade school, and she was at work. They did this in the middle of the morning, believe it or not,
yeah,
and she did not. She was at work. When they buried JJ, she was out of town. Chad had had a vision of her grandmother, and her grandmother had wanted her to go to Utah to visit her family. And so I keep hearing this that Chad sent Tammy to Utah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Tammy was 49 years old. Really? Chad sent Tammy back? I suspect that's actually true,
Mhm.
But at
It
any
does
rate, he
seem
had encouraged her or asked her to go to Utah and spend time with her family. So she was actually out of town that weekend.
yeah.
Um,
So in both cases, she just wasn't home.
yeah.
In the case of Tylee, also, that is the day that the strange text message about the raccoon happened, where he covered his tracks by saying, "Hey, by the way, there was a big raccoon on the fence. I killed it and buried it um,
The pet
in
cemetery.
the pet cemetery," which is where they buried Tylee. He also said, "I decided to burn a bunch of the limbs in the yard before they get wet because it was going to storm." And they had used the fire pit also.
Mhm.
And he wanted to cover up the fact that he had fired a gun, which is
Yeah.
horrifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, those and if you see the property, you'll see that where all of this occurred is way back at the end of the property, and
Yeah.
it's not near the house. I mean, unless you went out there intentionally, you wouldn't notice. And because he had said, "Oh, I did these things,"
Mhm.
you wouldn't immediately have known that anything had happened.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah, so that is exactly how he did that.
Yeah, Missy said Chad's visions were so convenient for him, weren't they? Yeah, so
Mhm.
convenient. Oh, and yeah, wouldn't Tammy have sensed something was a bit off? We have heard rumors that yes, Tammy did sense that some things were off and that their
Mhm.
marriage was pretty rocky at this point. Things weren't good.
Mhm.
But I don't think I wonder if she had suspicions about the affair that was
Mhm.
going on, but I don't think she had any awareness of the murdering of the children. It's
No,
awful.
I don't think in her wildest dreams she would have thought that that would be the thing that was going on. I do think she knew about the affair. But
Mhm.
my understanding from people close to their family is that she was, she had considered leaving Chad, but they had a son on a mission
Yes.
for the Mormon Church. He was out in young men serve in a mission field for 2 years, and for your parents to get divorced while you're on your mission would be a huge shakeup. And so her decision had been to stay and make it work until that kid got home from his mission.
Yeah.
Which, how very sad for Tammy. But right up to the end, she was doing the best she could to be the best mom she could.
She was. She
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
And, Missy says, "What a terrible thing to do to a raccoon." And I agree, I would never do it,
Oh
but
yeah.
living out in the country where they live,
Hmm.
raccoons get into a lot of things. It's not that uncommon. It's not something I would do, but yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it is. People hate raccoons,
Victoria, I
unfortunately.
hope no one I know dies after looking for all these types of poison. I know, Victoria, me too. That's why I'm like, FBI, if you're listening, this was for a case.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, the other part of about the raccoon that I didn't really get is raccoons are nocturnal.
Yeah.
And the idea that a big raccoon was just walking up the fence line, just pissing everybody off like that is just outrageous to me,
Yeah.
honestly, because, but also,
They do that stuff
if
at
a
night.
raccoon was walking up the fence line, depending up the fence line, he would have been firing at his neighbor's house,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, looking at the fence line. I
I guess
know,
unless
it's
it was one of the back fence lines and he would have been firing into an open field, but,
yeah,
the vision I have always had of that is a raccoon right up against, like, the canal side, and I'm like, "Really?
I know, me too,
You
and
just walked right up there and shot a raccoon?" Yeah,
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 I know. Yucky.
yeah. No, I'm quite sure she knew about the affair. I do.
Yeah, I
But I'll
think
tell
so
you guys
too.
something, I don't think this was Chad's first affair,
Oh, hell no.
and,
No, no, my sense is that this has been a challenge throughout their marriage.
mhm, yeah. Yep, and unfortunately, some women stay for their kids, for their church, for various reasons, and, yeah, I think that this was just you know, one of a few. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. Well, that's what we have for you tonight. We just wanted to talk
Yeah.
poisons a little bit and talk theories around poisons. It's kind of interesting to consider, hopefully we're gonna get an answer one day about how they did it.
Yeah.
I think we will.
Mhm.
More is coming, but
Mhm. Yep. Absolutely.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
thanks, you guys.
we are True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters, and thanks for joining us tonight, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.